for that thing. But again, welcome everyone for another edition of the Bean Bag Banter program brought to you by AAA Physical Therapy. And for this afternoon, we are very much delighted to have Miss Bonnie Danker of Care Patrol to be here as our guest. Thank you for being here.
Thank you, Rael. Nice to see you.
Likewise, thank you. As our guest for this Bean Bag Banter program. So, we'll go ahead and begin. What does what do you do, especially Care Patrol as a whole?
So Care Patrol is an elder care. Should I look this way?
Either one. All of these ready to go. Go ahead. That's fine.
Care Patrol is a elder care referral and placement company, and so it's kind of a new phenomenon in elder care and senior care. We were founded by a geriatric care manager and a social worker who wanted to take the type of care management model and make it available for all older adults and their families at no fee for the older adult and their family to be able to get consultative services on the care options, housing, programs, subsidies, and things revolving around elder care, and make it at no charge to them for this consultation. And so that was the birth of Care Patrol. So our service works. We're predominantly, our clients are older adults and their families who are going through a transitional time, trying to put together the best type of care plan for themselves or their loved ones. And we come in as a resource and care managers to help provide that type of support.
Okay. And because there's so many options out there, that's why you guys are here, to help identify what's the best or proper.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Okay.
So it can be really overwhelming for families. In the state of Maryland alone, there's 1,098 different assisted livings. So how does one choose? And many times when someone has to make these kinds of decisions, they're making these decisions with very little time, and time is of the essence. Many of the families that we work with are in a hospital or a rehab situation, and it's been determined due to either their health or their progress in rehabilitating that it's no longer a safe option for them to go home, and therefore they're going to need to pursue care outside of the home. And that's where our services come in, because myself and I have a team of 5 locally here in this area of Montgomery and Howard counties, and then I have about 170 colleagues just like me across the country.
Sorry, I missed that. Could you say it again, please?
So we work with families navigating, and many times it's helpful because we have an
Directions to where?
Somebody wants to join the Beanbag Banter. I think we should get another beanbag for that too.
Exactly.
And this is what makes it fun, live, recorded, or what have you. That's why we're in the beanbag. We're just chill, or just anything goes, as long as we get to share the ideas out there. You want me to go and get it?
Sure.
All right. Okay. Sounds good. Okay.
Help them find out, get directions to where they're going.
Directions where we're going.
It's another thing that Care Patrol can do.
Yes. All right.
Provide you with that personal. Thank you.
All good. Yeah, again, this is what's making it fun. So again, thank you for tuning in. All right.
So our service really, we help them navigate this, and we vetted all these communities. Mm-hmm. And so we help them identify those that can meet their needs clinically, and the type of social and environment that they're looking for, and then financially those that meet their financial requirements. And then we pick them up personally and take them to look at those options, and then we coordinate with their physician or other professionals to help with that whole transition in.
I want to make sure I heard you correctly. You said 1,000 types.
1,098 different assisted livings in the state of Maryland.
So there's over 1,000 of different types. So, or just 1,000 over
different
ALA.
places.
Different places. Gotcha.
Yes.
All right.
And so they'll break down into different types of communities, from a continuing care retirement community, which I can elaborate on a little bit more if you'd like.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about elder care options, you really have 3 different scenarios. One is bringing care into the home. Someone returns to home, we bring support into the home. And so that would be one scenario.
Mm-hmm. And you help with that?
We help with that.
Okay.
We help people understand how that works, and we can refer them out to private duty in-home care companies as well as skilled care companies, and also any type of county programs that they might be eligible for. So that's one type of service and support. So that's kind of the referral side of our business. We have two facets to our business. One is placement and one is referral. Mm-hmm. So with the referral, we're connecting families with many different types of resources, and part of that is care, getting support in the home. If that is what they choose, we're going to help them facilitate that. If they're looking for care outside the home, then that's where you're going to be looking for options such as a continuing care retirement community, which is a community that's able to, where you're buying in at the front end of that, and then they're able to provide that continuum of care. On the same campus, you're going to have both independent living apartments or cottages, as well as assisted living, as well as a skilled nursing and rehab center. So continuing care retirement community has a lot of advantages for someone to be able to plan for their care for the rest of their life, and to know that no matter where they are in that care continuum, that they're always going to have this support available to them. And so that's very attractive for many families that are planning. The caveat is many times you have to still be at the independent living level in order to really be an appropriate eligible resident for a continuing care retirement community. So sometimes when we're working with a family, that option is not really available anymore because they're already at the point where they really need a lot more supportive care. And so that's where assisted living comes in. And assisted living comes in two different varieties. You have both a residential assisted living, which is like my home. It's a what we might call residential or boutique style assisted living, where it's a private residence that's licensed to care for older adults. And so they're cared for in a very similar environment to their own home. So for many families, that's a very attractive option for them, because there's not a lot of changes other than the caregivers are kind of like a surrogate family for them. And then you have commercial assisted living, which are going to be more like a retirement community, but they're going to be rentals, and so it's apartment style living, and then you have 24-hour caregivers on site to help with anything you might need, and then restaurant style dining options and things along that line. And you bill month to month based on your how much supportive care you need. So it's very fluid, so someone can make a change if they would like very easily, which is a little bit different from the continuing care retirement communities where you're making this big investment up front, and it's a lot more difficult to kind of break that if that doesn't feel like the right community for you long term. So that's how those different scenarios work for families. And the assisted living, like in the state of Maryland, we have 38 continuing care retirement communities, but we have almost 1,100 assisted living. So when trying to determine, especially many times when you're under the pressure of you have to discharge within 48 hours from the hospital, or you know, the skilled nursing facility only has to give a family 48 hours notice prior to discharge, and so many times their families, you know, aren't really prepared to be able to make these kinds of decisions so quickly. Yeah. And we can kind of take their hand and help them through that process.
And you can easily imagine that for family members or the loved ones taking care of such individuals, they're busy in their own respective lives already, and then now they have to go ahead and attend to this. And yes, having proper guidance, and again, that's why you guys come in, right?
Yes.
To really identify what specific needs based on the current situation and where they seem to, trajectory-wise, where they would go. And then you can provide whatever the guidance that they can have. And again, yeah, it's unfortunate that only for such short notice, it's very difficult to navigate that. And it's not only identifying, oh, okay, I want to go here, because you also identify if there's an opening.
Yes.
And
yes.
then all of those other logistical ideas, things to cover.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay. All right.
And that's where we can be extremely impactful, because we're, because I manage a specific geography, and I have wonderful colleagues just like me in the Baltimore, Washington area who are the local sage in their area. We collaborate every day on different families in different situations, and so we're going to know, you know, who has availability, clinically what they can manage, what their price points are. And so it really helps someone not have to spin their wheels, and that can be very impactful, both from the hospital side, who really is under a lot of pressure to discharge a patient because of Medicare guidelines and payments, and or not being able to get paid because they don't meet criteria. And then for the individual and families who are really looking what we all want, which is to have the best care for our loved one, and for them to be nurtured and supported in the right type of setting and situation. And for many people, they've never been down this path before. They didn't anticipate it. We plan for retirement, but we don't necessarily plan for aging. And so there's a lot of questions and a lot of misconceptions that are out there, and we try to help kind of answer some of those questions and help them sort through it.
And with that, again, I know we still have a few questions here to go, but thank you for doing what you guys do.
Well, thank you.
Because again, you're helping these families and their loved ones, and again, finding the right position, and it's going to be challenging to really project. I mean, you can plan as much as you want, but if you come from the hospital or what have you, things can just easily change.
They do.
So, yeah, as much as we want to go ahead and plan things, and that's why, to those who are listeners right now, there are so many things to go ahead and consider, because aging is going to happen. We're all going to age accordingly. So have these conversations with your loved ones in all facets, and this is one aspect, if you may. And again, that's why we're doing these programs, in order to provide such information to the public, especially here locally in Howard County. So, all right, and okay, wonderful. Now, the other thing, you mentioned earlier about the medical support that they need, but how about the non-medical social and support programs, or medical daycare? Would you like to talk about that a little bit more?
So if someone, if their choice is to live at home and you're trying to help put together the best care plan for them, we're very fortunate in that in this area we have both social programs as well as adult daycare programs. And there's many support groups. The Department of Aging and the county really underwrites many support groups for all different kinds of individuals. So you have your senior centers that provide a full array of programs and activities. And then such as day programs, social programs, clubs, lectures, music, all kinds of things. And then you have your adult day programs, who are many times associated with some of these senior centers as well. But the adult day programs provide care for someone who's not able to be at home during the day, who might need companionship or meals. And the adult day programs are supervised by a registered nurse, is on staff. So if someone needs a little bit more help, or going in and out of the bathroom, or they need to have their vitals checked, those kinds of things are done at the adult day program, as well as they usually have either a breakfast or a lunch and some activities, including an exercise program that's offered. Usually they run during regular business hours, like 8 to 3, and then you can have like an after program as well until 5 or 5:30. And they do provide transportation. They run an average of $85 to $100 a day. And if somebody does qualify for Medicaid, then many times Medicaid would pay for that adult day program if they qualify. Otherwise, it is private pay. But your long-term care insurance, if you happen to have that, also would be included in that. And some veterans benefits also would pay for an adult day program. So it can be a very, a good way for someone, for a family who's trying to make sure that their loved one is safe and well taken care of, to be able to put together a care program. And then for the caregiver, there's many of these other support programs that are offered either during the day or in the evening, because one of the really important things that we know is that the caregiver many times for someone is the one who kind of burns out. And so we want to make sure that where we are and where our caregivers are, that they're able to get that respite and that support that they need, whether it's participating in a support group or getting other types of care coming into the home to give them a break so that they can take care of themselves and stay healthy.
And I think one of the terms, sandwich generation, if you may,
Yes.
because they're taking good care of their
Yes.
parents or grandparents,
Yes.
and then their kids,
Yes.
and even grandkids, if you may.
Yes, yes,
So it's,
yes.
it's all of that, and it's interesting that the way we go through life, you're thinking of after school programs, and then here after
Yes,
programs.
after adult daycare.
After adult daycare programs, so there. All right, wonderful. Now, I know you have already identified in terms of daytime supervision versus independent living, but if you could differentiate those things a little bit more in terms of exactly what they need and how do you propose which one is what with that?
Sure. So you have, in the area of, we talked about somebody living at home and bringing care into the home, and that would be through private duty home health, and then many times adult day programs, and then it may also be having some type of transportation that's supporting them and taking them to appointments and things along that line. And then many times family is involved in that care as well. Outside of the home, you have independent living, and then you have assisted living and skilled care.
Mm-hmm.
So independent living takes on a number of different flavors, so to speak. So you have communities which are independent apartment communities for 62 and older adults. And in many areas, these communities can also be subsidized, because in order, to kind of build and develop a specific area has to have so many independent adult communities in order to meet the needs of their neighborhood, so to speak. So your independent communities are going to be apartment communities, and where they can be very advantageous is they're handicap accessible. They give you the option of having a circle of friends as your neighbors, and many of them also have community centers and recreation centers on site that you can go to for activities and programs, and just that community feel. They're going to be usually a tenant agreement. Usually it's going to be a 1-year lease contract, and so that can be a very a good way for someone who might be moving out of the home in order to have a little bit more support around them as a living option. Some of the independent living communities now, they're really seeing a need that their residents would like to have a little bit more support. So they're bringing in on site the ability for someone to contract with a home health service for specific needs. It might be, a 20-minute stop-in by a nurse or a caregiver to administer medications or set them up or help somebody in and out of the shower or things along that line. And so they're bringing these supportive services in. And that's where we start looking at enhanced independent living. What supports can we put in place in order to have that adult stay as independent as possible, but not necessarily have to be in a more assisted type of setting. And so that's a big movement that we're seeing in this area, and a big growth area for home service and home health companies. Then the next option would really be what's called enhanced independent living, and there are a number of communities that are rental communities that offer this. And the enhancements are really where you have, as part of your monthly fees, it includes all the maintenance of your apartment and all those kinds of things in your monthly, but it also includes usually 2 meals a day in the dining room, and it also includes weekly housekeeping and laundry, and a daily check-in system, whereby if you don't push a button in your apartment to let the front desk know that you're up and doing well, they will send somebody to check on you. So it gives a lot of peace of mind for families to know that if their loved one is in their apartment, but maybe hasn't come down, that there is going to be somebody checking on them. And then they have the enhancements where they don't have to really worry about doing their, their laundry and their linens and things like that, that's going to be taken care of, and every week they're going to have a caregiver or a housekeeper that's going to come in and take care of their laundry, and that 2 of their meals are going to be provided for them. It's going to give the resident an opportunity for socialization and also good nutrition. So that's part of the enhanced independent that we see going on both in assisted and independent communities, as well as what we see even in some of the continuing care retirement communities for those residents who are in their independent buildings.
Okay. And I know you mentioned that it's dependent on where they're at, but could you care to share a little bit more who you are coordinating with, or primary care physicians, or anybody else involved?
So when someone is transitioning into any type of assisted living or enhanced independent community, or even into a retirement community, part of that admission process is a health assessment. So they'll be doing a health assessment, financial assessment, things like that. And that healthcare assessment is done usually by the primary care physician in conjunction with the individual and or their family. And they really look at what medical conditions someone has, what medical conditions they take medication for. Are they able to safely administer their own medications? Do they understand what their medications are and side effects and things like that?
Yeah.
And then it also looks at, do they need any help with what are called activities of daily living? And there are things like bathing and dressing and going in and out of the bathroom and transferring and things like that. And based on that assessment, that really determines whether someone would be best supported and cared for in an independent situation or an assisted situation. And then the nurse at the community also would do an assessment, and with that individual resident that was applying and interested in the community. And based on the physician's assessment and the nurse's assessment, that would really be a way of determining where in the community they're going to really have the most quality of life. So that's how that process takes place. The individual has a lot of input into it as well. It's not totally determined by the physician and the nurse, but they're able to really understand based on the community itself and the offerings that they have where they're best going to fit.
So, as you guys can imagine, there's so many things that need to be covered and considered.
There are.
And it's not just an easy thing, okay, this is where you're going to place your loved one, if you may. And all of these things from a medical point of view, from a social-emotional point of view, the surroundings and so on and so forth, what they're exactly looking for. And again, what can they do on their own,
yes,
versus something that they may need a little bit more guidance. And you have these different levels of care,
yes,
that we need to go ahead and really identify. And you guys may know certain things already, but there are certain things wherein, Care Patrol or Ms. Bonnie would be able to bring up, just to go ahead and make sure that you're making an informed decision with whatever it is that you're going to do. Because one of the things that you mentioned earlier that maybe you guys aren't thinking about are if you have the long-term care insurance.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
So
yes.
those kind of things, because if it's like, you have this folder somewhere hidden in the,
Yes,
in the drawer,
yes,
and
yes.
you don't know if all this time you've been paying for
Yes,
it. So, and on that note, care to, I don't know if you want to talk a little bit
So-
more about that, because I
So
think,
it's interesting. Most private duty care, where a caregiver's coming into your home, or assisted living care, or care in a retirement community, is private pay, and trying to figure out how to best set up that your finances in order to pay for your care, and understand how much time should you really be looking at. They're all things that need to be taken into consideration, and so we'll pull in financial advisor and an attorney and many times even somebody's therapist and individuals like that, understanding their medical condition and what they're going to need. But long-term care insurance is a important part for those that have long-term care insurance. We really want to encourage someone to take advantage of it. only 9% of long-term care insurance policies are ever activated. And that is just astounding. And so, you know, part of our role is understanding your long-term care policy, what criteria the community that you're living in must provide you with in order for you to be able to utilize that long-term care policy, and really advocating for that older adult in order to be able to take advantage of that, because, you know, we're very, very passionate about really supporting our clients and our elders in any way we can. And long-term care, many people, just like you have mentioned, you know, have paid into this program for a long time. Mm-hmm. And there are differences in those long-term care policies, and so we really want to kind of pull that apart in order to make sure that is something that is utilized. And so we're always saying, you know, don't wait. You know, I can't tell you how many times I've worked with a 95-year-old or 97-year-old, and they're like, no, I don't want to use it yet. You know, I want to save it. And we're like, no, definitely. Let's take advantage of it. Let's find out what you need to do in order to get this policy, you know, activated, and use this, because you have worked hard, you've paid into this, and we want to make sure. Similar with, there's a veterans program called Veterans Aid and Attendance Pension, and it's not a very well-known program, but it is a wonderful program that can help to pay for care for veterans and or their spouses who served during a wartime period. It's very impactful. It can pay up to $2,000 a month for care for a veteran, and up to $1,100 a month for the spouse of a veteran. And you really only need to show that you need help with 2 or more activities of daily living in order to many times qualify for this. So these kinds of programs are programs that are out there to help pay for your care, and we want to make sure that we try and have that information and have it accessible in ways to connect into it.
I think if there's one word that I can highlight or at the same time change, is advantage. It's yours.
Yes.
Use it.
Yes.
So it's no, you're not taking advantage of them. You're using what you paid for.
Yes.
And that's outstanding. 9%
Yes.
of whatever it is that's been paid for.
Yes. Yes.
Wow. So
yes.
really figure it out.
Yes. Yeah. And we even have resources. You know, sometimes it's hard. Families and individuals, there's so much paperwork involved with many of these programs, and many things just in the health industry overall. Mm-hmm. We know sometimes you go back into your doctors and you know, they hand you 6 pages to update, and so being able to kind of sort through can be challenging. And so we also have resources of companies who that's all they do is help people apply for these VA benefits, you know, or what they do is they work very closely with Elder Life, for example, mm-hmm. Where they work very closely with if somebody is not qualifying for their long-term care, or they just don't maybe, you know, have the ability to complete all that paperwork, they can help facilitate that, and so there's a lot of resources out there, but many times what we have found is that it's hard to connect into them unless you have somebody helping you navigate.
No doubt. And again, that's why you're here.
Yeah.
Because like what you said, just think about all the paperwork and all the emotional decisions.
Yes.
I mean, it's already challenging enough with whatever the situation is, and you involved with emotions and a whole bunch of paperwork. But again, that's why you're here, in order to help sort things out a little bit more. And again, you mentioned about the veterans, to all the veterans out there. Again, we can't thank you enough. And I'm glad that we have these programs and that you can work with Miss Bonnie and everybody else out there sort of doing the same things, that it's our turn, it's our time to help you out in one shape or form with all the service that you guys have provided. So again, thank you for that. So, all right, I know you mentioned it earlier in terms of the different types of caregivers. So again, the LPNs, the CNAs, and so on and so forth.